Hello everyone, my name is Zach Yeti. I'm a Parabellum veteran and welcome to the World Map Basics video. Today, we'll be going over a number of processes, such as capturing territory, unit movement, and economy, along with other mechanics to get your nation moving on the Parabellum World Map project. Before we begin, please know that Parabellum system is constantly updating, so some inaccuracies might be present in this video depending on when you view it. This video will be using the current system documents, definitions, and descriptions, but allow for a more basic or understandable step-by-step guide on how to do each basic action. Without further ado, let's get started. Some terminology you'll hear in Parabellum most frequently are the terms province and region. Provinces are the individual towns or cities with their immediate surrounding areas. Regions, however, are more akin to states, as they are a collection of provinces. This is, of course, the actual land that belongs to nations and is considered their territory on the world map. To start off on the world map, once your nation has been verified, and you have joined the secondary Parabellum World Stage Discord server, you will be rolled and be asked to submit your starting regions on the world map in the appropriate channels, along with your spawning your first army. If you haven't read the verification process, it will be linked in the video's description below. It should also be noted that all the actual movements, conquests, and all other actions are done by the world map staff in ROBLOX Studio, and each of your submissions are done through the Discord server. The map is updated every week on a Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or so they'd have you think. Sometimes it might be a little bit later, but don't be alarmed. This is considered the end of a turn. Simply put, turns are a unit of time we use to allow nations to make actions and submissions in a reasonable manner. The first basic function you will be using the most on the world map is army movements. Army movements allow you to capture territory, engage in battles, and siege fortresses, among other things. Our developers created a helpful tool in the world map game to allow nation leaders such as yourself to more straightforwardly move armies around by automatically creating a template from the post in the appropriate channels. For provinces without any railroads or upgrades, your armies can move 3 provinces in friendly territory. Armies can also capture 2 neutral or hostile provinces. However, you can also move 2 friendly provinces and then capture 1 neutral or hostile province with your army. To submit an army movement, you must go into the Parabellum World Stage Discord server and submit your army's movement template in the appropriate channels. Army movements allow your nation to capture neutral territory in order to expand using the previously mentioned movement table for armies. Expanding overseas is a little bit more complex, so you probably don't need to worry about that, as that requires setting up a colony on another continent or island with the use of a naval transport unit. This is something most nations will learn about a bit later after they spawn into the map, so you shouldn't have to worry about it unless you're an island nation. And if you are an island nation, I wish you lots of luck. These kinds of submissions allow your nation to expand in the world map, which allows you to capture more resources or take your nation's sovereign territory. On the topic of sovereign territory, nations should expand into their core territory first, rather than branch outside of it. Core provinces are essentially your nation's true and historic claims to territory. Expanding outside of core territories invokes economic penalties and can also lead to conflict with other nations whose core territory you occupy. If your nation isn't a historical one, Parabellum does allow fictional and alternative history nations into the community, provided they fit the historic Victorian era setting and theme. Certain nations, however, are prohibited from spawning due to their massive core territories. These nations are mostly made up of nations that did not exist during the year 1836, which is the start date of Victoria II, the game that Parabellum is loosely based upon. These nations, however, are able to be formed by existing states on the map. These nations are called Formables and can be formed after certain requirements have been met. The list of these nations can be found in the description below. These are some of the many territorial matters in Parabellum that an aspiring nation such as yourself must consider before making any drastic moves. Regardless of intention, all submissions must be posted in the correct channels. These submissions will be processed, and you'll be informed if your submission, for whatever reason, is denied. Armies can only pass through friendly or neutral territory, and foreign nations must grant you, or you grant them, military access to pass through either borders. Wars in Parabellum are relatively common and can be anything from a small regional conflict lasting a week to a great war spanning continents and taking months. Should a nation want to go to war, the attacking nation must justify that war. In Parabellum, this is done through a war justification document, handled and confirmed by the War Master. The justification must be valid in order for you to go to war. Most commonly, though, wars are done for territory, especially if they're your cores, but they can be done for a variety of reasons. Some justifications can take a different amount of time, but most justifications usually take up to one turn to finish. Once the justification is complete, the nation can declare war against their target nation. If a nation is at war and two armies meet in the same province, a battle will commence. Battles are the bread and butter of wars and will ultimately decide the victor of most conflicts in Parabellum. Battles must be scheduled with battle moderators. Scheduling a battle happens in a private setting, typically like a group chat, and scheduling's purpose is to set up the most convenient time for each nation's group members. Scheduling should allow for a maximum turnout for each group, and is preferred to have a number of days ahead of time as a notice. For the purpose of preserving the history of Parabellum, all wars and conflicts are logged into the war document, which lists the battles, the prelude to wars, and the significant events of the war, and participating nations and their armies. Each nation in Parabellum has an economy. No duh. The basics of Parabellum's economy is simplistic in design, though, or so they'd have you believe. Anywho, a nation's resources are produced automatically by each province. Each province produces a different resource, which, depending on what continent you're on, might have a different value. For instance, silk is highly valuable in Europe because it's so rare, whereas cotton is a low-value resource in the Americas because it's so common. Provinces also generate tax revenue depending on their town level. This tax revenue, along with the resource value, produces Parabellum's universal currency known as resource points, or RP for short. RP can be used for a variety of options such as upgrading towns, building railroads, or other buildings. You can also grant RP to other nations to help them in certain circumstances. Armies require RP and manpower to create, but only need RP in order to maintain them. Manpower is also produced by towns automatically. The resource workbook shown on screen automatically calculates everything for your nation in the Overview tab. If you have questions concerning your status on the workbook, feel free to ask a member of map staff. This is the end of the video. If you have any other questions, don't be afraid to ask questions from members of the staff, the community, or any other nation leader or community members, though they might make fun of you just like me. Please, remember to be courteous to fellow community members, but most importantly, have fun.